Hello everyone, today we are going to be learning about the artist Paul Klee. He is often inspired by Cubist and Surrealist art movements. That's why in his work you see a lot of shapes that are balanced out to create an image. So today we're going to be doing Paul Klee inspired castles. So before we begin, we're going to need a few materials. So after I list the materials, you want to pause the video and grab those materials, then we'll get started. The materials we will be needing today are a pencil with an eraser, a Sharpie or black marker, and then we also need some sort of coloring material. If you don't have that, that's okay too, but you could either use crayons, you could do watercolor as I did here, or you can use colored pencils. It's up to you and whatever material you have available to you. But we will need a pencil at least and a Sharpie marker or a black marker or pen. You'll also need a piece of white paper. I'm just using copy paper, but you could use sketchbook paper or any paper that you have available to you. It can be larger or smaller than this. Again, whatever materials you have available. So right, now that we have our materials, let's get started. So we have two options that we can use for doing our Paul Klee inspired artwork. We can do a sun or sunny day, or we can do a nighttime scene. But aside from the sky, our buildings are going to be done in the same way. So today I'm going to be doing a sunny day. So I'm going to grab my blank piece of paper, and somewhere in this top section I'm going to draw my sun. Since I did it on the opposite side on this drawing, I might do it on over here. So I'm just going to draw a circle. Maybe I'll do some triangles for the rays. Now that I have my sun, it's time to start by drawing our castles or our buildings. So to do this, you're going to start at the edge of your paper, and you can make them as tall or as short as you want. I recommend doing varying heights. That way it kind of creates different levels of interest and different heights. So I'm going to start pretty close to my sun, and I'm just going to start by drawing a line across. And then once I have my line across, and they can be skinny little buildings or they can be wider. So once I have my length, I'm going to draw a straight line all the way down to the bottom of my paper. And I'm going to repeat this step until my whole paper is filled with different castles and buildings. So as you can see, after I did all my pencil lines creating my different sized buildings, I went back and I traced everything with a Sharpie marker, and I also traced my sun. I also erased all my lines that weren't shown just to make sure I have a nice clean paper. So now that we have our buildings and our sun drawn, it's time to start making those shapes. So Paul Klee often used a lot of shapes within his work. So we're going to be doing the same thing within our buildings. In each building, you can draw different circles, squares, triangles, rectangles, different patterns and shapes within each building. As you can see here, I have a lot of squares that I made with different lines to give different textures. I have some circles, and I also use different colors within those squares. This creates lots of different areas of interest, and you can see that each building is slightly different. So I encourage you, when you're doing this, try to make your buildings slightly different from one another. That way they are each unique and stand out on their own. So what I'm going to do after I have my buildings and everything's traced in marker, I'm going to go through and I'm going to start with the squares. So I'm just going to divide some of my buildings, not all of them, and I'm just going to make different shapes. Maybe I want to add a little door, or maybe some windows, sticking to those shapes. Even if in my shapes I can make lines, I could do triangles, It is up to you on how you fill in your patterns. Just keep in mind, use basic shapes such as squares, triangles, and circles. And remember, you can start with Sharpie marker or you can start with a pencil. It is up to you and what you're more comfortable with. If you're not comfortable with making the patterns, I recommend using pencil first and then going back with a Sharpie, just as we did for our building. And once you have all your shapes and designs drawn, you can start by adding different roofs. So you could do triangles for your roof, you could do half circles, or you could do like triangle kind of castle-like patterns on top. And then you can also do different designs in your roofs as well. And once we have our castle all drawn out, everything is outlined, we can start to color. So I'm going to use crayons for mine. And remember, we want to use all kinds of different colors. So I'm going to start, maybe I want to start with red, and I'll do all my circles in different colors. You don't have to make everything red. You could add different colors. So here I have purple, orange, and blue, all in one building. I have red and green. It is up to you. Use lots of bright, bold colors that will mix together to create your Paul Klee castles. And that's all that I have for you today. I hope you enjoy creating your Paul Klee castles.